How's everybody doing today? I hope you are well. Obviously, by the title, you can tell what we're doing, so I'm going to show you a couple different ways to open cells. If you click on World up top and go to cells, you can open a list of them. There are certain things you can change here, and there's certain things you can't. And here is where you really change the interior lighting for the whole cell. But to go into the render window, we're going to go down below into a different window. This window here is the render window, which will show you the inside of the cell in the creation kit. This box here is the cell view. So you can right click and duplicate a cell if you want to, or whatever cell you created, find it in here. But I'm just going to alter the abandoned prison cell for this tutorial. So this here is where you enter the door, where you land. The controls inside the render window can be tricky, so it's best to look them up if you're unsure how they work. Shift button, Z, everything gets used a lot. If you're asking yourself why I don't go over the controls, it's because I'm not trying to make a long, drawn-out tutorial. The controls are very easy to find. I'm just trying to do a certain thing to show. This was a requested tutorial to show how to add water and flooding into a cell. So that's what we're going to work on. So to bring stuff inside of the render window, we need to get to the object window. We're going to choose what we want. I click all, and then I'm going to put a cliff. A lot of times when I build a cell, I use a cliff. Not to put a cliff in the cell, to use a rock formation to clip through the wall to create something unique. But to bring something into the render window, just click on what you want and drag it in. So I'm going to choose a cliff from this list, and then we'll just drag it in. I'm going to drag it in, you'll see that little, like right now it doesn't look like the cliff is there. It's because it's so big. So if you back up from the cell, you can see what you put in. And then once you create anything else, you can move this around, and I'll let part of the cliff just clip through the wall. And you won't see that in the rest of the cell, but that adds a unique effect to the wall. Even though this doesn't have to do with flooding, I'm just giving an example of how to bring stuff into the cell. I'm going to speed through this because this is irrelevant stuff. This is just moving stuff around and becomes mundane. There's nothing you need to watch and sit there and stare at and waste the time in the video. The next thing we're going to look for is water 1024, and that we want to drag into the cell. Now as we speed this up, we're going to move the water down to where you want the floor to be. I am not speeding this up to try to confuse you, because there's nothing I can teach you. You can only do it by what you're seeing, because you're doing a completely different cell than I am. So the important thing is to move the water around until you get it as close to the floor as you can to make a start, and we'll start from there. Now as you can see here what the water looks like, a lot of time it looks just like this inside the render window. Sometimes it's hard to see. But as you can see the edge of the square, there's a barrel right here, and that edge of the square, it means I haven't got the water scaled to where it needs to be. And the easiest way to explain that is to go into the game and show you. So I put that cliff piece in to show you how to drag it in. And a lot of times I like to go into the game to see what mistakes I've made. And the only way to really tell, and there you can see me moving that up and down right here. That's the cliff side. And we saw that square with the water. So now let's go into the game and you can see what happens if the water isn't scaled right or stuff isn't set right. Okay, so let's load this up real quick. Will only take a second to get into here. And the cell that I'm altering is the abandoned prison. Now if you're going to alter a different cell, if you don't want it to be permanent or to alter the game, you might want to duplicate the cell before you do it. Let's go inside. And now we can go down through here and see what's going on. So I'm putting the water down the bottom of this to make this look flooded. Just as an example. As you come down here, you see this clipping through the wall and how that's up in the air? That's that cliff edge I put in. So obviously I got to fix that. This is why in the creation kit you really can't see it. It looked good, but it's not. But when we turn around and see that little square, watch this. In that little square I'm going to swim because it's not scaled. So it's reading that the water is deep right there and only there. And you can put these other features in like that water sprouting through the wall. There are many things you could do to add to it, but it's nothing you can truly teach someone in general of what their vision is. It's stuff you got to experiment with. Jumping back into the creation kit, we got some corrections to make. I just wanted you to see in the game what it looked like if you didn't get it right. So there's that small square we were swimming through. There's the cliff I had too high. And a lot of things can change. So if you hold down the Z button, it'll give you that line to go up and down only. And this is why it's important to learn the controls inside the creation kit. So when you scale out the water, and you get a hold of this water, you want to scale it out bigger than the cell. Clipping right through the walls, because if you don't, you're going to find dead spaces. And the way to do that is when you get the water, here I'm holding Z, I'm bringing it up and down. When I scaled it out, I held S and moved the mouse. This is why the controls are so important. So here it looks like we made the cell flooding. We made it look better because there we got the water flowing into the wall. That's also something you added in. It's all about trial and error on a lot of this stuff. Little green circles are the sounds. Every animation you put in here, or every piece you put in here, no, it doesn't have sounds to it. You've got to put the sounds in yourself. So when you go in the cell and hear the running water, that little green icon that you see in this creation kit is what is making that sound. So let's jump back into the game so we can see the changes we made in game. So in the creation kit, before we come back in here, we changed the level of the water by moving it up and down, which was holding Z and moving the mouse up and down. We scaled the water out beyond the walls, beyond the cell walls, to let them clip through so we could try to put the water through the whole cell, and we moved that cliff that was a little off the last time we come in. So as we come down the steps, I'm going to stop here and hit kill all, because any enemies that were in the cell, I just wanted to die right now so that they don't interfere with this video. So now you can see the water is at the bottom of the steps. So we've now flooded the cell. But how deep did we want the water? That's one thing we got to figure out by coming in and out as well. So right here we swim, it comes up and down. There's the edge of that cliff. That's not a normal wall in a cell. We created a normal wall by using that cliff clipping through the wall. That's why a tutorial like this is so hard to make on building cells, because building a cell is a personal preference, so it's something you got to do with a trial and error and come into the game and see what it looks like. So if we go back in through here, we can actually see this leak in the wall, which makes sense why the cell will be flooded. Now, I'm only concentrating right now on this part of the cell. But as you go through and I go up and down with the camera, you can see where the water level is at. Most of it you can walk through. You can see it filling up into chests. So everything is scaled through. So it looks like if we scaled width-wise, we have it right. This is part of the cell. As you can see that part of the cliff? Now there's like this ramp coming up. That's because that part of the cliff is coming through the wall. And of course there's a door here, but we're not going to worry about it, because it's not what we're concentrated on. Again, the big thing about building a cell is trial and error. And if you're new at this, the best thing to start at the basics of building a cell. That isn't what this tutorial is. This is about creating the cell flooding. So there we go. We have all of this. So we're going to jump back into the creation kit and try one other thing. We're going to change the depth of this water. Now that we're back in here, I'm going to show you a couple other things. Now you see this water spout. This is actual multiple pieces. Like there's multiple springs put together. This is why a tutorial to explain how to do every single thing would take days. I mean days of footage, because there's so much you can do. This is why it's really a trial and error thing. You got to get the basics down in building in a cell, and there's great tutorials to do that, how to build a basic cell. But as you can see, the outskirts of it, the water that I scaled out goes far beyond the walls. But this is the water. Right now, I want to change the depth of this water. So if I highlight it, and I hold down Z, and move the mouse, now I can move the water up. And if we get the depth right, where again, it's something you got to go in the game and see where exactly what you want. But if I hold down the S and move the mouse around, you can see I'm scaling it way out. I want to come far beyond the walls so that there are no holes. If there are other caverns, it covers those as well. Now, as we go back into the game, if you go back in and you don't see your changes, it's because you forgot to save in the creation kit. You forgot to save your progress. We've all done it. So if you're new to this, it's a mistake that can happen a lot. So just make sure you're always saving your progress in the creation kit. So let's go in and see what happened with this depth change. So let's head into here. I truly hope this tutorial has helped you in some way. I know it might seem very confusing, and it's not meant to be. It's because everybody has a different vision. So you don't have the same exact vision, so everything you're going to do might be different. The key is controls. So as we can see, we raised the water level. It's much deeper now. And now we swim around in most of it instead of just walking around in most of it. The leak's still above the water, which is what I wanted. So it still makes sense for this to be flooded. So with this here, you have your flooded cell. This is how you flood a cell. And you can do this in any cell you want to. There is another way to do it with scripting it, like they did in the Thieves Guild questline, but that has a lot of bugs in it. So right now, this was about a flooded cell, and that's what we have created. So that is the key to doing this. If you want to get into cell creation, take the basic tutorial first, but that's the first release. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope this helped you in some way, and I'd really appreciate it if it did help you in any way, and you watched this far. Thank you very much. Please leave a like and comment and let me know what you're doing. I hope you guys have a fantastic day.